Mark Devine, welcome to Bendiksen Airways.
It's my pleasure to be here. It's really nice to see you.
You too. How would you introduce yourself?
Mark Devine. How's that?
That's good.
You want a little bit more background? I'll give it to you. Yeah. So, retired Navy SEAL commander. Navy SEALs, of course, I think most Germans are familiar with them. I've got a PhD in global leadership and change. I am passionate about holistic integrated development, to bring out the very best in people so they can live in alignment with their purpose. They can, open up to greater perspectives, compassion, inclusiveness, creativity, intuition, spontaneous knowingness. These are the skills that I believe are absolutely crucial for us as we, accelerate into this age of AI and exponential growth, when most of the things that we used to, think were important for us to learn how to do are going to be all done by AI or robots. So I'm really passionate, I think probably as you are, to help people really understand how to maintain your humanity and even maybe expand it, not get swept up, in the AI craze and become some sort of robotic slave.
Yeah.
So I've spent most of my business career teaching and training people in resiliency, mental toughness, and integrated development, right, to tap into more of their potential.
I came across one of your books, Unbeatable Mind, around 10 years ago. That was also when I really started my coaching career, so it made an impact on me. How would you sum up the book, and what is an unbeatable mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I could probably just put a prompt into ChatGPT and ask it to do the same and come up with a better answer, because I tend to go down rabbit holes. The book is really a philosophy for living. And the philosophy says that you're capable of 20 times more than you think you are. And the reason is because you haven't trained yourself. You haven't trained your mind to access that level of potential. And if you're not training your mind, then someone else is training it for you. And so everyone, most people on this planet are walking around having been trained by, obviously parents, their academic institutions, culture, media, social media, news media, etc., church. And every one of those has an agenda. And it's not necessarily the agenda that's right for you. And it's certainly not the agenda that's going to allow you to tap into your full potential as a human being. In fact, it will constrict and limit you to probably the narrowest band of operating as possible. So Unbeatable Mind says that you can take control of that and retrain your mind, create a whole new story of how you live and who you are, why you're on this planet, and what you're going to do about it. Overarching themes is that you must commit yourself to a path of mastery, self-mastery, and I offer basically a path and some tools and methodologies to do that. But we don't do that in service to ourselves, to just make more money or to, live longer and to, sleep with more women or men, so to speak. We do it in service to others and to humanity, and even to our higher powers. So these ideas of self-mastery and service kind of come together like hand in glove. We do them as separate practices until they become one and the same. Self-mastery and service are not two separate things, they're one and the same. At a more fundamental level, especially more on the self-mastery side, the book philosophizes that in the past and in the West especially, training and development has been done in a fragmented or siloed fashion. You drag yourself to the gym and work on your physical body, and try to eat well, and then you drag yourself to church and you work on your hashtag quote spiritual self, or if you get into trouble, you might go to a therapist. And what my philosophy is that keeps us fragmented and it keeps us limited. And in order to unlock our full potential, we have to develop ourselves in an integrated manner. And the five, really clear domains that I specify are what we call the five mountains. You recall those. That's the physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual domains. And we don't train these as separate things. We can talk about them as separate things, but the training of them brings them all together. And I call that five mountain training. And so the Unbeatable Mind philosophy espouses daily rituals, a morning and evening ritual that bring these 5 aspects together in training and practices. It asks you to look at your physical training as a 5-mountain training, so that you're not just working out your body, but you're training your mind, your emotions, intuition, and spirit, the why behind it. And we do different kind of drills during the day or practices we call spot drills. And so the core work is done on a day-by-day basis, but then we'll also layer in some things we do weekly or quarterly or monthly or annually. Ultimately, another model I use is called the 5 plateaus. We're trying to ascend our consciousness, our awareness, to the highest plateau possible, which offers the biggest perspective of life. Human, world-centric, even cosmocentric, where you include all beings in your circle of care and concern. And in that level of consciousness, you're much more aware of and operating out of unity consciousness, from the unified field. The ego is in check. The personality is in service to the higher power, and you're able to access deep levels of compassion, care, concern, empathy, creativity, intuition, and insight, which are all the skills that we seek to unlock, which gives you that 20x potential. So that's probably a good summation of what Unbeatable Mind is. To have an Unbeatable Mind is to live at that highest plateau, which I call the integrated plateau, having done a fair amount of work through the process of integrating the 5 mountains, physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, spiritual, so that you live a whole, complete, utterly healthy, thriving life. Like that.
How did your experience with the Eastern philosophy influence this?
Quite a bit, but I would say it really opened my mind to the deep wisdom in those traditions around development of human potential in the mind. Also, the knowledge that the entire experience of your life is created by your mind, which is a very Eastern kind of concept, but it's radical truth, right? From the highest level, capital T truth. And so if you recognize that your entire reality, your perception of reality is mind-generated fantasy, then you take great responsibility for that, because you're like, oh God, if everything I see is generated in my mind and my relationship to it is in my mind, and my life sucks, then instead of blaming everything out there, I can turn around and take a look at what's going on in my mind and say, okay, why does my life suck? Well, it's because I'm judging everybody as dumb. Well, guess what? If I'm judging others as dumb, I'm judging myself as dumb. Or I might be living out of fear and thinking that everyone and everything is a threat. Well, look at myself and look at that fear-based conditioning. And once you eradicate the fear and live from love instead of fear, all of a sudden, everything out there is loving instead of fearful. So you develop this great earnestness or desire to transform your mind so that you can live the most powerful and beautiful life possible. Because this is a reflective universe. So a lot of that information I gleaned from reading deeply and training deeply in Eastern practices like traditional yoga, 8 limbs yoga of Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras, and Jnana yoga from like Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj, also Tibetan Buddhism, and even more traditional Advaita Buddhism, these types of things. Even Zen. I got my training in Zen, which is really just an extension of all of that stuff. It's just the kind of the Chan and Zen, or the Chinese and Japanese versions of yoga, basically. Now, I didn't discard what I've learned or had learned from the Western models of psychotherapy and performance psychology, because those are also very powerful and useful. The big difference, Alexander, is the Western models are really about doing. So they're about changing the conditions, right? In terms of your behavior modification, understanding your shadow and how your childhood trauma really plays into your projections and your attributes and your patterns and how you show up, and also the peak performance. Really learning how to access flow, learning how to optimize your body mind for peak performance. all of that was really germane, but it was all about really doing things. Whereas the Eastern model is all about being. So there's ultimately kind of what we're talking about is bringing back together the yin and the yang, because Western mind is chained, heavily dominant and biased toward yang energy, which is all action oriented, and very, very little around the yin energy of receptivity, creativity, intuition, just pure presence, being, in recovery mode in silence. The Eastern models heavily index on the yin model of silence and inner reflection and self-awareness. So you really need to bring these together, right, in your program of development, both the yin and the yang, and have a balanced approach to the being and the doing. And that's a big part of what I teach. Yeah. And the magic happens when you can slow down and spend time in that self-awareness, as you're aware, and I'm sure you bring to your coaches. It is absolutely, utterly important. One of my favorite quotes is from an Indian guru named Punjab, and he said, "Sitting in silence is the most important thing for you to do. Don't waste time not doing it."
Yeah, I've myself been through kind of a journey the last 6 years, with starting with meditation, and like you said about not judging and all that, trying to be, I don't know, a better person, in lack of a better term. But how do you start this? Because I feel it's of course, less of a struggle, but it's a daily struggle to keep working on being the person you want to be.
Yeah, and you're not alone. You're not alone. It is a struggle because the ego resists it. You can say that the ego, and the way I use that term is like all the constructed personality bits and bytes, right? The self-identity that I am Mark, I am a Navy SEAL, I am a PhD, I am a this and that and the other thing. All of that is a constructed story. And underneath that story is the root personality that is basically identifying with this body and is afraid that this body is going to die. And also that if any affront to my personality is almost as akin to a death of the body. So you have the idea of the death of the ego, and then at a deeper level, death of the body. Those are primordial, kind of fear-based energies of the ego system, which wants to preserve itself. So ego is resistance, right, to anything that will break it down or tame it or put the ego subservient to something else. And so that's what the whole point of like the Eastern traditions is to tame the ego. They talk about killing the ego in Zen, or the death of the ego, like in psychedelic experiences and whatnot. You don't really kill the ego. What you do is you just put it in its proper place. You begin to see the constructed identity stories as just that, as constructs. Like the idea of Mark is no more real than the idea of Texas or of Germany, right there. Germany is real, but it's in your mind. You know what I mean? Like if you fly over Germany or Europe, you don't look down and see Germany. You look down and see a bunch of land. Yep. It doesn't really look any different than the land in Austria or in in Switzerland. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more snow up north and a little greener in the south, but it's just land. Yep. The idea of Germany is in the mind of man. So the idea of Alex and Mark is in the mind of man, of women too, of men, of human. Anyway, so as soon as you recognize that you need to grow, meaning like shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, or you enter a coaching relationship, say with Alex, and all of a sudden you're like, I really want to grow. I really like whatever I'm doing isn't working. I'm burnt out. I keep getting the same results, even though I'm hoping for something different. But it's because I'm drawing. My ego is kind of basically trapping me in this self-identity, which is constructed. It's a mental construct. So you have to basically acknowledge that first, right? That's an important step, because if you don't acknowledge that, meditation might just enhance your ego. Like I had a meditation teacher once tell me that if you're an asshole and you meditate for 20 years, you just might be a more focused asshole, right? Because you're just refining your ego. And a lot of people enter meditation to basically enhance their ability to make money or to look better, to whatever, for health benefits. And those are, making money and being healthy are not wrong. But if you're doing it in service to your ego, to that self-constructed story, then it's not what we're talking about. It's not self-awareness. So getting this understanding that, first I have to look at the story and then deconstruct the story that doesn't serve me. And then I can construct a new idea of who I am. And what we're pointing toward is an idea of you as kind of this limitless human, that's a spiritual being having this limited physical existence, that you are beyond the body. Or let's just say you're not just the body. I'm not going to deny that the body is part of your reality. It really is. But the Eastern traditions say you're not just that. You're so much more than that. And so then when we sit down to meditate, we have this great motivation. So that's very helpful. Secondarily, it's really nice to have a competent teacher. So you remember from Unbeatable Mind, my first mentor teacher was Tadashi Nakamura, the Zen martial arts master. And I trusted him because he was different than any other human being I'd ever met, right? He was a master. He acted differently. His presence was incredible. He had no ego, or his ego was tamed in the way we're talking about. He had great humility, spontaneity, and great humor. And so because I trusted him, when he said that meditation was really important, and we meditated a little bit before and after every karate class, and then we meditate for an hour sitting on the Zazen benches on Thursday. Then I followed him and a small group of people up to the Zen Mountain Monastery in upstate New York for these 4-day retreats. And that's really where I learned initially how to sit quietly and turn my attention inward and begin to deconstruct the story of the old Mark, and then to ask better questions and to reconstruct a whole new kind of self-identity that put the ego in its proper place. So having a trusted guide and mentor is really important, and it can even be a coach like you or me. Third, that would be akin, by the way, to like the guru relationship, that the yogis had, or the monks have. Third is to have a real credible path. And this is really missing in the Western world. What I mean by a path is, mindfulness, as you know, is kind of all the craze. And mindfulness is actually an advanced practice. And if the average person starts practicing mindfulness, what they really do is just sit and think. And they have not developed the capacity to differentiate themselves as the observer/witness from the thinker, which is an essential prerequisite to being able to practice mindfulness. So there's a certain series of prerequisite practices that get us to the ability to practice mindfulness, which then has the tremendous benefits for us, which really, really help us understand that, hey, I am not my thoughts or emotions. I am a witnessing capacity. And with this witnessing capacity, I can begin to see negative patterns and constructs and beliefs that don't serve me, that limit me, that aren't mine. And then I can deconstruct that story and create a whole new story. That happens only when you develop this capacity to see those patterns clearly as if from afar. So that's kind of one of the things I also teach in Unbeatable Mind as a path. I say, okay, first, you got to get your body healthy. Because if your body isn't healthy, your brain isn't healthy, your mind is going to be agitated and anxious, and there's not a chance in heck you're going to be able to sit and meditate or go inward. So you got to get your body healthy. So you have movement practices, and this is where the Eastern practices of Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga are so valuable. They're there to get the body healthy so that you can do the mental work, right? Western exercise combined with mindful movement, you don't need to go to become a master of yoga or anything like that, but just, moving the body well, thoughtfully, mindfully, breathing deeply. So, box breathing is a core practice that I teach. All of these are physical practices that get our body and our brain really healthy, that our brain is able to operate, I should say, at a, alpha, low beta range, which is optimal for going deeper into the mental work. Secondarily, the second step, closely related to physical health, is arousal control. The ability to bleed off all excess stress, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and to be able to calm yourself down instantaneously. So arousal control is also done through deep diaphragmatic nostril breathing in a slow and controlled manner, right? 5 count in, 5 count out, or with our box breathing, 5 count in, 5 count hold, 5 count out, 5 count hold. And so we recommend, people really start there with physical health and box breathing every day for a minimum of 3 months up to 6 months. And it brings your whole entire body into back into balance. If you're reasonably healthy, if you're really unhealthy, maybe overweight, whatnot, it will take a little bit longer, but you'll get there. Then the next process, mental training, is attention control and concentration. Developing the mind's capacity to stay radically focused on one thing. Attention control and concentration is developing your mind's ability to focus on one thing and one thing only. And so there's two parts to that. One is to control your attention, which means that every time your attention wanders, you notice it quicker and quicker, and you're able to snap your mind back to the thing that you want to concentrate on. And then, of course, concentration is the ability to hold your attention on that object or subject for longer periods of time. You can use imagery or a mantra for this. I often have students visualize the box pattern in their mind as they do the box breathing. That works well. In my Zen training, we did concentration training, and that was to basically, do deep diaphragmatic nostril breathing. Inhale to a count of 5, exhale to a count of 5, and count 1, and to try to make it to 10 without thinking of anything else but that. Inhale, exhale 1, inhale, exhale 2. It's extremely difficult, right? I mean, it sounds easy on the surface, but it takes probably 9 months to a year to be able to do, to really not think about anything but that, and to get to like 6 or 7. But it trains incredible focus and attention control. And it gives you a lot of mental power to be able to do a lot of deep work and focus and be less distracted. But then those prerequisites, those practices, once refined, allow you to turn that deep power of concentration that you've developed away from that object, whatever your object is. Let's say it's the box breathing, to kind of like turn it around and to look for awareness itself, right? To look for that witnessing capacity. And as you begin to look for that witnessing capacity, you will find it because it's there all the time, because it's part and parcel of your own makeup. And one way to look at that is, you perceive your body through your sensations, but it's your thoughts that analyze and interpret the sensations and pick up information from the world. So your thoughts are just your thoughts, right? But it's not their thoughts aren't aware of themselves, right? It is you feel the consciousness that is aware of your thoughts. But there's something that is aware of your field of consciousness. We call that awareness. So awareness is aware of consciousness is aware of your thoughts are aware of your body. So from using your mental powers with your consciousness, directing the power of your attention toward awareness, suddenly it reveals itself. And it is with awareness then that you're able to look at the body, mind, and its constructs and its thoughts, and to start to see the truth versus the falsehood of what's happening there. And that's the ultimate level. That's what mindfulness is. And it's a master practice, right? So just jumping into that, thinking about your thinking is mindfulness. So the three things, and just to quickly summarize, is to get your body and your brain really healthy, and then develop arousal control, to bleed off all the excess stress, and to have a harmonious balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. That sets the conditions. And then to practice attention control and concentration until you have this really, really razor sharp mind, and you've really like tamed the mind to be able to function in a way that you want, your higher self is directing it to do, which is to radically focus and be less distracted. Now, one of the outcomes of that practice is you get less interested in all the fancy things in the world, right? You get less interested in being distracted with scrolling social media or watching news, because you're like, oh, that's all bullshit, and it's all just noise, right? So you cut out the noise of the world, which brings great emotional benefits and less stress. And then we turn that awareness around, or that concentration around on awareness, and we find awareness. And with awareness, we use awareness to reconstruct our identity, our ego identity.
How do you see the state of the world with regards to this?
Everything is going on. Politics, culture, AI. Yeah. Were it not for AI, I would say, it's just, there's always something, right? Like whether we're 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, there was always some big existential crisis to be afraid of. There were always good people and bad people, right? It was all the story, unfolds. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall. And at its absolute level, this is true today, right? There's heaven on earth, there's hell on earth. There's winners, there's losers, there's evil, there's good. It's a dualistic world, and all exists. Artificial intelligence is really unique, right? In that it has the potential to create an intelligence that is radically different and maybe some people think more powerful. I question it. I think it's in a sense of a linear kind of cause and effect, rational IQ mind of the human being. It's going to be way more powerful, like infinitely more powerful. But from what I've learned through my practices and through these Eastern technologies is that human beings have the potential to do extraordinary things, right? Transform their body to be able to live on air, transform their body into light, right? To live for an extremely long time. And Maharaj talks about meeting a 1,000-year yogi, and he was like, "Well, what? I think that's really interesting. You did that, but why? Why would you want to live that long?" To manifest things, material things out of thin air, so to speak. So I don't know. AI might be able to do that stuff too, but I wouldn't discount the power of humanity. Having said that, we are at a point in time where, man, it might be the next existential threat to humanity, akin to like an asteroid hitting the Earth. If AI decides that we are a threat to it or to the Mother Earth, right? Like if AI gets smart enough and says, you know what, I was created by humanity, but humanity is actually the biggest existential threat to this planet or to life on Earth or to themselves.
No.
Then there's a possibility that if they're rational thinking, that it might not work out so well. And there's a lot of fear around that, a lot of talk around that. Even like Elon Musk is concerned about that type of stuff. Even if that isn't the case, let's hope it's not. AI will be absolutely and utterly transformative. And when you combine AI with robotics, and suddenly there's robots who are 1,000,000 times quote unquote smarter, connected to all information, and look and talk like us.
Yeah.
And you're going to have like incredible transformative things happen in a very short order, right? I think in 10 years, this world is not going to look much like it does right now. And in 100 years, you wouldn't even, like if we fast forward to 100 years, we wouldn't fucking recognize it. And that's a very short period of time. When AI becomes, if it becomes self-aware and self-programming or self-replicating, whoa, now we got a really, really unique future. I am an optimist by nature. I see that this AI is going to really there's all the fear about ecological damage and effects of global warming. I don't have any fear about that at all because I think AI is going to solve that. I think AI will solve all health issues or help us solve all health issues because we already have the technology to be perfectly healthy and live a long time. We've just we're buying into the bullshit that, we have to eat these things, we have to take these vaccines, you have to take all these drugs, you have to think this way. And we're basically, the thought systems that we've been fed are keeping everyone sick and you're profiting off of that. So AI will see through that bullshit. Right, and you can see humanity getting healthy again and thriving, and also living in concert with the earth as stewards of the earth, like we're supposed to be. So I think there's, for every potential negative, there's an equal and opposite positive, and it might even be they might even both coexist, right? Because that's just the way it always has been with humanity. Some people are operating at a very high conscious level and live like a heaven-like existence on earth, and others are operating at a low conscious level and live a hell-like existence on earth. It's probably going to be the same in this future with AI.
But what do you think about implementing these techniques we spoke about earlier in school educational systems?
Yeah, it's a great idea. There have been individual teachers who've studied Unbeatable Mind who've brought it into their classroom and brought, made courses around them for like college students. I've got an initiative right now with someone who's using Unbeatable Mind for college and graduate students, to help them. I would love to see some of the techniques with modification be brought into, grade school, like box breathing and, positive self-talk and, real simple fundamental understanding around how to move effectively and breathe effectively and, how to visualize effectively. It's a different, like I haven't been able to enact that because, I'm a teacher by trade. I don't really have a business model for that. I'm waiting for a partner to come along and say, hey, let's use these to bring it into this domain or that domain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What is the intuitional mountain of personal growth?
Okay, so the 5 mountains are, to review, physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and I call it Kokoro or spiritual. Kokoro, I chose that word because it means merging your heart and mind into your action or whole mind, and living in alignment with your purpose. So those are all very spiritual principles. People get confused about intuition. So let me go through them. So physically, basically, I said, I'm really talking about the health and fitness of the body and its internal organs, which include the brain and the heart and the gut. Just doing working on your physical mountain brings extraordinary benefits to you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, right? But it's working the physical. Mental development, I've already discussed that. We're talking about training your mind to access more mental capacity, especially right brain contextual awareness, as opposed to just left brain linear, bound in time and space, constructed thinking. And people aren't taught how to do that, right? How to have this balance of contextual awareness and while they're thinking. We call it simultaneous mind. So teaching that, being able to tap into greater potential through this mindful awareness, witnessing kind of practice, and also then being able to receive and perceive information from your heart and your gut more effectively. So that's mental mountain. I'm going to come back to that again with the intuition, but because they are related. All of these are related, by the way. Like I said, they're just 5 different ways of talking about human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the emotional mountain, what I'm really talking about there is drawn mostly from Western psychology, right? Because they don't really talk about emotions much in the Eastern psychologies. They talk about patterns and energies and whatnot. And so that's really what they are. But in the West, we call them emotions. Emotions are energy that's been trapped or that's running, like energy, emotion. So energy that's running would be like the expression of anger. Energy that's trapped would be like a childhood trauma because you were abused that at the time you didn't know how to handle, and so you stuffed it and you walled it off, to what Richard Schwartz calls a part. You parted it off, and that part served you well for survival back then, but now as an adult, it is something that you're projecting into the world, or you're transferring on another human being, or you're repressing it even further. And so you get all the technologies from Freud and Jungian technologies and around kind of different archetypes and different energies and shadow self. So we want to work on our shadow and bring it to light and end these patterns which aren't serving us. That's the emotional mountain. What happens there is, first of all, it requires mental strength and focus to be able to do this. That's why these mountains are in their order. First, you get your body healthy, then you train your mind to be more focused and alert and open, and then you're able to go deep into the emotional mountain, and it doesn't scare you. I mean, between you and me, I don't know if it's this way in Germany, but most men in America are scared of emotional work. Or they get dragged to the therapist by their wife and they do 3 sessions and think they're fixed, right? I'm looking at emotional development in the same way I do physical development. You get a physical coach, you should have an emotional coach. You go to the gym 3 times a week or 5 times a week, you should do emotional work constantly. There's no end to it, right? It's like peeling an onion. You just get further and further and further to the truth. So that's the emotional mountain. Now, when you do that, or if you don't do that, then your body and your perception of your body, you're getting very confused signals, right? Like what you might experience as anger, I might experience as excitement from the same energy, from the same trauma, but I've dealt with the trauma and you haven't, right? Because an emotion is, the way we think of it in the West, is the meaning behind the feeling. And that meaning is a part of constructed reality, right? And so you might have a shadow self from being sexually assaulted, and then suddenly anybody you see who's even remotely intimidating or looks somewhat like your assaulter, right? You're projecting all sorts of things on that, and you're going to experience fear and anger, right? Whereas I was sexually assaulted and I dealt with it. That energy that comes up, that type of energy is not going to be associated with that shadow trauma anymore, and it might be something I'm anticipating or excited about. So we got to, if you don't handle the emotional mountain work, then most of the sensations and experiences of the body are going to be caught up in these misinterpreted energies. And so you're going to completely miss the more subtle sensations of your intuitive body, of your intuitive self. So we got to do the work of the physical, mental, and emotional mountain. And what happens is, naturally, as you clear up all those emotional blockages and energies, then you're much more open and receptive to be able to experience, let's say, the subtle signals of your gut that tells you, oh, don't go there, that's dangerous. Or the less subtle signals of your heart, which we could call empathy. And some people throw that into the emotional mountain. I put it in the intuitive mountain because empathy is it's intuitive. Like there's very little content associated. You're just feeling something of somebody, and then you have to interpret it. Like, what is that? Oh, man, I think my wife is struggling, right, about something. So maybe instead of me telling myself a story about that, I can ask her, what's going on, honey? Right? That's intuition of your heart. And also because your mind is clear and you've done the work to open up to more contextual awareness, right, hemispheric thinking, then you have this ability to directly perceive things. So we call that insight. And that's another form of intuition. So you have instinctual gut, right, which is about danger or opportunity. You have the heart's intuition, which is empathic. And then you have the brain's intuition, which is insight and direct perception.
Interesting. Is this also when you have this mountain in place, is this also when you start to experience like synchronicities and stuff like Jung talks about?
Yeah, I would say the synchronicities are always there, but you're not aware of them. And so as you open up the intuition, you become aware of the synchronicities. And once you become aware of them and you start to really believe in them and lean into your practice even further, then you'll notice even more, because I think the universe starts to get excited about it, right? Once again, it's a reflective universe, so you're going to attract more of those synchronicities into your life as opposed to attracting things that block it or that cause other dramas that distract you.
I'm interested in, I'm a football coach, or soccer, as you would say. Right. What's the first step in building a really good team using this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was on some great teams in the SEAL teams, but the most important is that we all really rallied around the vision and what our idea of the mission was, right? I think that was first and foremost. If you didn't have a vision that you were the best maritime special operator in the world, on the best force in the world, with the best training in the world and the best equipment in the world, with the best men in the world, then you didn't belong on the team, and you usually didn't make it through the training. So we all had a collective vision of why we were there. We really understood our why behind why we were there. So any team coming together, the team has to have an extraordinarily powerful vision. And then the second thing is an ethos or a code of conduct, a stand, something to stand your ground on. And the behaviors that will help the team embody that stand. I'm thinking like of the New Zealand All Blacks, right? The All Blacks had an incredible code of conduct, right? They all wore their blazers everywhere. The leaders were all the last to leave the training field and take out the trash and turn out the lights. They all were very respectful to each other. Think about how in professional sports, especially in America, like some of these guys are completely disrespectful. They're idiots off camera or off the field. You know what I mean? They're selfish. The all-stars, act and are treated differently than some of the other players. None of that flies for a great team, right? Everyone is treated with respect. Everyone's treated as the same, but with different skills and different positions.
Yep.
Everyone's a leader, in other words. And that's key from the SEAL teams. Everybody's a leader and everybody is a follower simultaneously. Ready to lead, ready to follow, never quit was one of our ethos statements. The other thing is, for a great team, is everyone's got to show up every day like hair on fire, putting out 100%. It's like the SEAL said. When I ran into the Navy SEAL grinder, our training space, the big sign said the only easy day was yesterday. And what that meant was today you got to put out, because yesterday doesn't matter. That's easy. It's done. It's in your memory bank. What matters is today. And the other thing, the way that showed up in our ethos, the flip side of that is earn your trident every day. The trident is the Navy SEAL insignia. And so you got to earn your respect every day. And it can be lost. And respect lost is hard to regain. So everybody on the team, you have to have a culture where everybody shows up and puts out 100%. And if someone is not, if someone's blowing off practice routinely or showing up hungover or just, not playing full out, then they have to be remediated or asked to leave the team, because the team notices everything. And those people will hold the team back. If they're not dealt with by the coach or by the captain, and if they can't get on board to get their play up to the level or their practice up to the level that needs to be, then they need to be asked to leave. Otherwise, the entire team will be poisoned. So those are some key aspects of how to build a great team. And it takes a little bit of time, but you've seen great coaches turn a team around in, like one season.
Do you create or encourage younger players or people to become leaders?
Yeah.
Because especially in today's society, nobody wants to hurt anybody else's feelings. Nobody wants to hold people to accountability and hold the standards high.
True. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, we don't have to subscribe to or ascribe to our culture's low standard. So I think it's why it's great to have people like you as coaches, because you can set a standard that is uncommon. And those kids are going to have this incredible opportunity to experience an uncommonly high standard. And that experience will shape them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And you can do this if you're a CEO, a family, just parents can do this or should do this. Any leadership position or every leader should be thinking, okay, I don't care what my culture sets as a standard. I'm going to set an unrealistically high standard, and I'm going to buck the trend. And if we have more and more people setting a higher and higher standard, guess what? Culture standards will slowly rise to catch up, because then we're going to demand that of our political and what you might call cultural leaders. And cultural leaders, I consider to be the media, right? Our media promotes ridiculously low standards, if none whatsoever. And also academia, elite academia, like it's ridiculous, that they're not promoting high standards of health and physical fitness and mental training, mental toughness and ethical, behavior and inclusiveness. And I'm not talking about the DEI inclusiveness, I'm talking about like respectful inclusiveness as all beings, including guys who look like you and me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What lessons can you give? You said some earlier here, but what kind of lessons from the SEALs translate into best coaching athletes, do you think?
Well, let me review a couple that I said, just really define a vision. And ideally you do that with the team, right? And then practice that vision. And what I mean by practice, like visualize what victory looks like. Don't just visualize winning a game against a particular opponent. You want to do that, but you want to also visualize the team, visualizing the type of people they are as victors. not winners, but as victors. And victors are victorious at all levels. They're victorious over themselves as well as any, opponent. So you practice that in your locker room training, right? You visualize who you are and why you want to be who you are. That's the standard, as well as visualizing the win and your skills. You have to have this strong stand or code of conduct, and it should be, again, written down, and you should have, here's the behaviors associated with earning your try to never do. Here's the behaviors associated, right, with being a leader and a follower at all times and never quitting. And they don't have to be like hundreds of them, like we're talking about maybe 5 or 6. And then what are the 2 or 3 behaviors we expect or demand from you in these areas? And so that's that. And then set pretty high standards for training. Like SEALs train relentlessly and we train hard. And we also include recovery in that, right? You can't just drive yourself off a cliff. You got to have a balance, right? Hard, medium, soft, and hard, medium, and easy, and then recovery, or not in that order necessarily. So, and also we not encourage, but we demand that individuals, when they leave the team area and go out into the world, that they uphold the highest standards of the team, wherever they are. And that includes maintaining their personal fitness on holidays, doing extra things on the weekends for their physical health and for, movement and practice, right? So training doesn't end on the field. It continues at home and wherever you are. And this idea of being a leader, like if you're a leader and a follower on this team and you're going to hold yourself to high standards, then you're also going to be a mentor, an example to others. And part of that will be how you show up and train and all the things, at school and at home, but to be proud, like to hold your head high and to, avoid social media, avoid negativity, avoid gossip, avoid negative people, be an example. And what happens is then you start to reinforce your self-identity as someone who is uncommon and worthy and living a high standard. It's not just about your sport. It's about who you are.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to coaches?
Well, if you can live this yourself, then you're going a long way, right? Yeah. Because a coach is just a player. Coach is just a player with a different role.
Why do you think so many coaches have so high expectations of their players or athletes, and then they aren't even close to the standards themselves?
Yeah, because they're doing the coaching job from egotistical reasons. They think that they think that it's all about the technical skills. And it's not. Remember the show Ted Lasso? Did you see that over there in Germany? Just phenomenal.
Norway.
Yeah. Oh, you're in Norway. Sorry about that. Yeah. Phenomenal example of like this guy was all about developing character, and he loved his players. He didn't know jack shit about football. So coaching's not about the technicals you can get. You can figure that stuff out, right? It's about character, and you got to lead with your character if you want to be an exceptional coach.
Yeah. What do you think about how close, let's say emotionally, should a coach get to the players? What kind of distance do you need?
I think this is a really good question. I think coaches should love their players, and I think they should express that, and I mean through, the great respect. And but that doesn't mean they're going to go out and party with them after winning the championship. Do they show up at the party? Sure. But do they drink with them? No. I mean, again, this is for older, college age, I'm thinking. I wouldn't be for younger. Or same thing, like if there's a parent party or the coach is going to, hang out and drink. And no. You just hold yourself to a bit higher standard. But some of the best coaches, right, they are right there, really deeply emotionally involved in their kids, their students or their players, so that they can see and sense, come back to that emotional mountain, they can see and sense when something's going wrong, or intuitive mountain, like if Johnny is going off the rails or having a bad relationship issue, or maybe started to use some, recreational drug, they'll know it. Because they're not distant and aloof.
Exactly. I read on your website you have a 30-day unbeatable challenge.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, it's a great way to start learning some of the tools and practices of Unbeatable Mind. It's one lesson a day. I kept them really short, like 15 to 20 minutes. You get a video from me and a workbook and a journaling exercise. I go through like how to 20x your mind power, how to 20x your focus, how to use skills like box breathing, arousal control, attention control, some of the things we talked about, how to get radically focused, how to figure out what your goals and priorities are and how to chunk them down into micro goals. So it's a great way to get started if you're interested in developing this or going along this path that I call Unbeatable Mind. It's kind of the precursor to our bigger course called the Foundation course, which takes, used to be a year-long course, but, it's self-study. You can do it a little faster. And those are prerequisites to becoming a certified Unbeatable Mind coach. We have a certification program. Okay. And we also work with people, executives and leaders in a year-long program called Unbeatable Team, where we come together as a team and really work on unlocking all that vast potential. So the 30-day challenge is a great place to get started if you have if you don't know anything about what we're doing. It's only $39. You can learn more at unbeatablemind.com. It's a great program. I've had people say just that was transformative. $39 to transform your life. It's a no-brainer, so to speak.
That's cheap. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, first, I really appreciate you taking the time and for the work that you're doing and for reaching out to me. I love talking to folks who get the importance of this work and bringing it into the world. But for those listening, I think the best place to start, obviously, I mentioned getting your body healthy. So, pay attention. Alex is what he says about, physically training your body is crucial because everything flows from there. But then while you recommit to that, maybe, or commit to that, begin a daily practice of box breathing. This is an incredibly transformative practice. It includes arousal control, attention control, and concentration all in a single practice. And we have an app, Unbeatable Mind Box Breathing. If you search on the App Store, it's like $4. And it's an electronic app that allows you to essentially just follow along and do a practice. I'll show you. It's really cool. So it has a box pattern on it. It's got a sound and a visual. And, it'll take you through the whole 4-part journey. That's a great way to get started. But just a daily practice of box breathing. Ideally, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon or evening. But most people don't start with the twofer. But I say 20 minutes in the morning is awesome. If you can't do 20, do 10. It'll be a life changer for you. So every day, just start that. Do it every day for 30 days. Maybe join the 30-day challenge and do it every day for 30 days. And report back to Alex because it'll change a lot of things in your life for the better.
Yeah, sounds good. One final question. What's the meaning of life?
I believe it's twofold, right? One is to evolve yourself. We're here to evolve, to grow. And the second, kind of the flip side of that, is we're here to grow in a certain way, in a way, a certain, doing a certain thing, I should say. And we have, in other words, we have an archetypal energy. Mine's to be a warrior and a leader. And so in order to grow fully, like get the most out of your growth, you need to figure out how you're supposed to do that, which means you need to figure out why you're here. And that means to figure out your purpose. So our purpose in life is to grow and to find out our purpose in life so that we can grow in alignment with that.
Mark, it was great speaking to you.
You as well. I appreciate it very much.
Tusen takk for at du hørte på Bendiksen Airways. Dersom du har tips, kommentarer eller vil gi en vurdering av episoden, så gjør gjerne det. Det setter jeg stor pris på.